Dallas was still yawning when hell cracked open. It started with a red light and a shaky, suspicious vehicle call that nobody really took seriously. Except for Officer Seth Raleigh, a cop who didn't know when to chill and always played authority like it was a video game with no reset button. His patrol car screeched to a stop in front of a black SUV, just a block away from a community center. Inside that SUV, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Yep, her. Jasmine had just finished eating biscuits and talking block grants with old church aunties. She wasn't expecting the sun, much less a dude with a buzz cut and a Glock pulled halfway out of its holster yelling, "Hands up!" before she even stepped out. And just like that, the countdown began. 3 minutes to disaster. Officer Raleigh didn't see the staff badges, the familiar face from last night's news, the Congresswoman's calm but very startled eyes. He saw black. He saw tinted windows. He saw a threat. Jasmine, always composed even under fire, literally and politically, got out with her hands already raised. Her voice was steady. "Sir, I'm Representative," but he cut her off. "Stop resisting!" he shouted like this was a movie and he was the star. Except the script sucked, and the audience was real. From across the street, a kid named Dion, barely 16 and already smart enough to recognize bullshit, lifted his phone and started recording. Raleigh had the safety off now. His voice was cracking. The staffers inside the car, silent, afraid. Jasmine, still standing, still trying to reason with a man who clearly didn't recognize the power he was threatening to misuse. 30 seconds gone. "This is outrageous," she said, her voice carrying that kind of fury only women who've had to fight for every inch of space can conjure. But he stepped closer, barked louder. "Face down now." The phone's recording light blinked like a warning. Dion whispered to no one in particular, "That's Jasmine Crockett. That's the Congresswoman." 60 seconds. Now people were watching. Joggers slowed. A mailman paused mid-delivery. Someone peeked through a barbershop window. The energy shifted. It always does when the gun's pointed the wrong way, and the person holding it doesn't know. They've just messed up history. At 1:23, the sirens kicked in. Not Raleigh's. He was the Lone Ranger here. But backup, drawn in by panic in his voice over the radio. But instead of reinforcements, what rolled up next was a black Charger, diplomatic tags, and a man in a Navy suit who damn near tripped, running up the sidewalk. He shouted, "Officer! That's a federal representative! Get your damn weapon down!" Raleigh blinked, confused, caught in that moment between fantasy and consequences. He didn't lower the weapon. 2 minutes. Jasmine didn't flinch, didn't scream. She stared at the barrel of the gun like she was memorizing it. Her words were crisp, slicing through the chaos. "Do you understand the chain of command, officer?" Dion kept recording, 2 feet away now. His phone aimed like a truth missile. Every second catching a cop too cocky, too racist, and way too late to realize he was being turned into Exhibit A. At 2:41, the uniformed backup finally arrived, this time led by a black lieutenant whose face drained when he saw who Raleigh had pinned. "Jesus Christ, Seth," he muttered. Raleigh stuttered. "She didn't comply. She didn't—" "Lower your weapon." 3 minutes. That was all it took. The camera kept rolling. Jasmine didn't move. Her people didn't breathe. The street had gone quiet, like it was holding its breath. The lieutenant stepped between them and said the words that cracked everything open. "You just threatened a sitting congresswoman in public on camera." 3 minutes. That's all it took for the Empire to start trembling. If Raleigh had even half a clue, he would have dropped that gun the second she said her name. But nah, ego doesn't listen. Ego drives full speed off cliffs. The moment snapped sharp when a voice cracked through the madness. "That's Congresswoman Crockett," a man in jeans and a windbreaker shouted, pushing through the crowd like the sidewalk owed him space. Plain clothes fed, clearly. Badge flashed, breath short, panic in his voice. He wasn't here for theatrics. He recognized Jasmine from the House Judiciary Subcommittee hearings. Those clips that went viral where she chewed up lawyers and spat them out with a smile. But Raleigh, still holding, still locked into his own cop movie fantasy where everyone brown is guilty and every shout of "I'm someone" is just noise. He didn't move. He didn't blink. Jasmine, though, ice cold. "You're about to make a fatal mistake," she said. Voice level. Tone low. Not fear. Just a fact laid bare, like she wasn't the one, with a barrel pressed near her damn face. And Raleigh scoffed. Literally scoffed. "Yeah, right." That stupid smirk playing on his lips like he was the one holding the winning hand. The gun inched closer to her temple. People gasped. That was the moment. That was when the line snapped. Another officer, rookie maybe, came sprinting from the opposite side. Already on the radio, his words tripping over each other. "Dispatch, dispatch, we got a situation. Subject is Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Repeat, Congresswoman Crockett. Tell the damn chief." Raleigh's face. "Yo, you ever see someone get slapped with invisible hands? That." The name finally registers. Not just, "Oh, I know that name," but "Oh God, I just pulled a gun on someone who could have me in a congressional hearing by dinner." That kind of realization. The grip on the pistol loosened, the shaking started. And then, finally, the gun dipped. Not holstered, just dropped enough that the barrel was no longer threatening Skull. Too late, because 3 phones were still rolling. 2 live streams were already blowing up. Dean's clip had just been reposted by a Dallas blogger with 90K followers. 1 tweet. "White cop pulls gun on Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. This city is done." Meanwhile, Jasmine didn't move, didn't thank him, didn't rub her face. She simply pulled her phone out, slow, deliberate, and started dialing. Raleigh tried to speak, but she shut it down with one lifted finger. "Don't say another word," she said, voice razor sharp. The line connected. "Yeah, this is Representative Jasmine Crockett. I need to speak to someone at Justice. Urgent." Raleigh backed up like the words themselves had weight. Like Justice wasn't just a department. It was the goddamn sledgehammer swinging straight for his career. More cops arrived. Cameras pointed. Dion hadn't stopped filming. The energy on that block, it shifted. The story was no longer cop draws gun. It was cop draws gun on power, and power just called back. The gun was barely back in the holster before Jasmine turned to face the people. No podium, no script. Just a black woman in heels, heart pounding, hands still trembling from a near-death run-in with law enforcement, standing dead center on a sidewalk that had just seen history hiccup. 3 minutes ago, she was one twitch away from becoming a hashtag. Now she was fire in motion. Phones were already pointed her way, lenses glittering like eyes. But Jasmine didn't flinch. She cleared her throat, steadied herself, and said the kind of words that don't ask for attention. They demand it. "This isn't just about me," she said, voice cracking just once before finding its rhythm. "This is about every black woman who doesn't have a title to protect her. Every sister who's told to keep calm while a loaded gun is pointed at her head. I just got lucky. I had cameras, I had status, but what if I didn't?" The crowd, once silent, exhaled. Like 100 people had been holding their breath through a moment that could have become another funeral march. Someone shouted, "We got your back, Jasmine!" She nodded but didn't smile. "I'm gonna need it." And just like that, the sidewalk press conference became a digital lightning storm. Dion's video viral, pinned by a major journalist in DC with a caption that slapped, "Gun to her temple. She didn't flinch. Jasmine Crockett." Within 2 hours, CNN and MSNBC were already running the headline. Texas Congresswoman held at gunpoint by local police. By nightfall, Jasmine's name wasn't just trending. It was on every damn channel. But in downtown Dallas, inside the cold concrete walls of PD headquarters, panic. Not press release panic, not "we'll make a statement soon" panic. Real panic. Whispered conversations in locked offices, phones blowing up, department lawyers running red lights to get to briefings. Because this wasn't just a PR disaster, it was a crack in the dam. And behind that dam, secrets. See, Officer Seth Raleigh wasn't just a hothead with a badge and a shaky trigger finger. Nah, he was plugged in, deep. The kind of guy who'd been protected more times than he'd been punished. His record was suspiciously clean for someone who had allegedly drawn weapons in 3 other mistaken identity incidents. All of them, oddly enough, involved black or brown men. All of them swept neatly under the rug, and now that rug was on fire. Civil rights lawyers weren't waiting. By sunset, a coalition had filed a motion in federal court demanding the immediate suspension of Raleigh's badge and a full civil investigation into Dallas PD's response to the incident. Their filing included screenshots, timestamps, and video transcripts. Everything was moving fast. Back in her hotel room, Jasmine sat on the edge of the bed, still in those heels, watching the clips on loop. Her staff hovered nearby, nervous, stunned. One aide tried to talk strategy, another mentioned a scheduled CNN interview. Jasmine held up her hand. "I'm not ready for spin," she said. "I'm still trying to breathe." Because this wasn't just a political moment. It was personal. And she knew, deep in her gut, that the officer who pulled that gun wasn't the only one she'd have to fight. Something bigger was hiding behind that badge. And it just blinked under the spotlight. By morning, the news cycle was choking on its own urgency. Every outlet had something to say. Clip packages, panel debates, hashtags morphing into battle cries. But what no one saw coming was just how fast the mask would peel off the Dallas PD. It started with a thread. One tweet from a freelance journalist with a tiny following, who'd been digging through archived police records for a completely different story. "Y'all, Raleigh's name shows up in at least 7 complaints over 6 years. Excessive force, racial profiling, harassment. Why isn't this public?" 12 hours later, that tweet had been cited by 5 major newspapers. Because she wasn't wrong, and she wasn't alone anymore. Investigative reporters started yanking on every loose string like their careers depended on it. What they found? Damn near criminal. Scratch that, definitely criminal. A report dropped from the Dallas Sentinel like a bomb. Raleigh had more than a dozen misconduct complaints, many from Black and Latino residents, quietly dismissed by internal review boards, stacked with his former academy buddies. Dash cam footage went missing. Body cam batteries just happened to die. Statements were edited between filing and final draft. They weren't just protecting a bad cop. They'd built a damn bubble around him. Jasmine? She didn't flinch. She didn't wait for the next morning show invite either. She stepped right back into the media storm and demanded a federal probe into the entire Dallas PD. "This is not about one officer," she said. "This is a pattern, a culture, a system that rewards silence and punishes accountability, and I will not be silent." Her voice carried like a siren, echoing from CNN to TikTok to the floor of Congress. Civil rights groups rallied. Protests formed overnight outside police HQ. People weren't just mad, they were done. But the system doesn't go down easy. 3 days later, Jasmine's assistant found an unmarked envelope wedged under her hotel room door. No postage, no return address. Inside, 4 photographs. One of her mother stepping off the porch, one of her nephew biking home from school, one of her brother walking through a parking garage, and one more. A shot taken through the window of Jasmine's own hotel suite. Blurry, but clear enough to recognize. On the back, 5 handwritten words in all caps. "Keep pushing and they won't make it home." The air left the room like someone flipped gravity. Jasmine didn't scream, didn't cry. She stood there, just staring at those photos like she was carving every inch into her memory. Her staff begged her to pull back, to let someone else carry the fight now. She looked up, eyes colder than ice. "They want fear," she said, voice low. "What they're gonna get is fire." Security was tightened. U.S. Marshals were looped in. Her family was placed under protective detail. But Jasmine, she didn't run. She didn't hide. She took that envelope, handed it to the Justice Department herself, and said 4 words that burned. "This is war now." And war it was. Because Jasmine Crockett wasn't just a congresswoman anymore. She was a frontline, and she was done playing nice. By the time Jasmine Crockett walked into the Capitol, the room was already standing room only. News vans parked like tanks. Protest signs lined the marble steps like battle flags. Inside, a whole damn army. Grieving mothers, heartbroken sons, survivors in borrowed suits, and a country holding its breath. The hearing was live-streamed. #Crockett Testifies was trending before she even opened her mouth. She didn't wear black. Nah. She wore a deep crimson blazer like a war general who came not to plead, but to burn. She was flanked by families from Ferguson, Minneapolis, Baton Rouge, names carved into hashtags, faces printed on hoodies and protest banners. And when Jasmine sat down in front of the mic, she didn't blink. She didn't fold. She unloaded. "Let's stop pretending this was about one cop and one bad day," she began, voice clear as glass. "This was years in the making. This was a system trained to look away and paid to stay blind." She pulled out a thick folder. Names, dates, receipts. She dropped them like bombs. Officer Seth Raleigh had 13 misconduct complaints. 7 involved excessive force. All swept, all dismissed. All protected by a captain who received direct financial contributions from a private security firm known to recruit from white nationalist message boards. Gasps, silence. Cameras zoomed in. She flipped a page. Those same firms received over $3.2 million in contract funding from the state. That's your taxpayer money. That's our safety budget. And that's funding terror, not protection. Boom, boom, boom. Every sentence was a controlled detonation. Some reps fidgeted. Others scribbled notes, like they'd just realized their names might be next. Jasmine didn't care. She had the floor and she was building a fire under it. And then she went nuclear. 3 nights ago, she said, her voice lowering, I received a private message from a sitting Texas lawmaker. He suggested, kindly of course, that if I dropped this inquiry, if I let the fire die down, there'd be favorable support for my next bill. Maybe even a committee chair. She looked straight into the cameras now. To that lawmaker, and the rest of you watching from behind your handlers and NDAs, let me be crystal clear. A pause. You can't bribe someone who already knows where justice lives. And the chamber exploded. Applause. Shouts. Some lawmakers tried to gavel the room into silence, but it was too late. The truth was already viral. Back in Texas, the ground cracked open. Raleigh was arrested. The moment they cuffed him, the press was already rolling. His captain resigned within the hour. Internal memos leaked to the press showed years of protected cases, disappeared footage, and falsified reports. But Jasmine knew better. This wasn't the end. This was the first real punch. The backlash was instant and feral. Late-night smear pieces, edited clips twisting her words, a PAC-funded ad painting her as anti-police. One senator even called her a dangerous agitator disguised as a lawmaker. She didn't even blink. She took the mic at a community center that weekend and said, "If holding a gun to a congresswoman's head doesn't justify an uprising, then tell me what the hell does." People cheered. She wasn't backing down. She was leveling up. This wasn't a protest anymore. This was a reckoning. With a name, a voice, and red heels planted like roots in the heart of the storm. Dallas didn't fall apart. It got put under a microscope. Federal oversight wasn't a suggestion this time. It was signed, sealed, and slapped across the front page of the Dallas Tribune in all caps. U.S. government takes control of DPD. 5 more officers indicted. 2 major city contracts torn to shreds. Turns out, both were linked to shady security companies funneling resources into anti-immigrant and urban pacification programs. Translation: they were militarizing neighborhoods like they were prepping for war. And all that fire? It started with one woman who didn't flinch when a gun kissed her forehead. Jasmine Crockett came home to a city changed. But it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. She didn't go straight to the mayor's office. She didn't hold a press conference at City Hall. Nope. She stood on the corner of Oak Cliff and Madison, in front of the building where 3 weeks earlier she almost died. A small stage, a cheap mic, a folding chair still duct taped from some community block party. But the crowd? Packed. Not for a rally, not for a protest, for her. Kids on shoulders, grandmothers with walkers, teens holding signs like armor. Phones out, sure. But this wasn't for clout. This was for clarity. Jasmine stepped up in a navy suit and Converse, hair pulled back, eyes burning with that familiar spark. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. This city, she said, will not be built on fear. The crowd erupted. Cheers echoed down the block like thunder in concrete. This city, she continued, will be rebuilt by the people who were once ignored, once arrested, once told they were too angry or too loud. Let them be loud. Let them build. She paused, breathing in the noise. And in that pause, something shifted. Not in her voice, but in the air. People weren't just listening. They were feeling it. And they stood, even those who'd been sitting, leaning, unsure. They stood up. A standing ovation for a woman who refused to sit down. But that wasn't the last image. Nah. The final shot didn't come with applause. It came the next day. Jasmine, stepping into a local rec center, turned town hall. No security this time, just presence. And waiting for her? Dozens of kids, ages 10 to 16, lined up in secondhand chairs, each one wearing a white t-shirt with blocky letters across the front. Don't pull a gun, pull change. Bullshit. No campaign slogan could touch it. No headline could bottle it. That was the legacy. She didn't cry. She smiled. Small, fierce. The kind of smile that says, I'm not done yet. Because the real disaster, it wasn't the gun. It was what happened when America finally saw what the gun was aimed at. It saw a system. It saw indifference. It saw fear dressed up in badges and policy manuals. And it saw what happens when the target turns around and talks back. Jasmine didn't just survive that sidewalk. She turned it into a stage. And now the whole damn country is listening.